Do you and your spouse know how to be hot every day?
Hi, this is Phil and Priscilla Fretwell here with Savage Marriage.
We're going to talk about how God is healing and restoring marriages today from betrayal, addictions, and the wounds of their past.
And what he did in our marriage, he can do in yours too.
Hey, Priscilla, we have a good topic to talk about today.
It was inspired by someone close to us.
Yes, actually, one of our kids, they
Yeah.
said, Mom and Dad, you guys need to talk about what it means to be hot every day. So now some of you might have looked at the title of that and you think this is going to be one about sex.
And it's not.
And it's not. So if you've read any of our material or listened to some of our podcasts, you may have heard us refer to this concept of being hot, which is honest, open, and transparent. And it really has been a core part of our teaching.
Yes, and our marriage.
And our marriage.
From the beginning, 4.5 years ago.
Yep. Not that we got married 4.5 years
No.
ago. That's whenever
you came clean.
I came clean. But for many reasons, we felt like our marriage was starting over then.
Yeah, God restored and renewed it. So
he
it is a
did.
beginning.
Yes.
We often comment about the first 28 and what's now. So
yeah. So 28 years and then coming clean from, on my part, sexual immorality and lots of things that I was doing that you weren't aware of. And God's just restored us in a miraculous way. But, a core part of what happened in our life back then is that we changed the way we were going to deal with this sin. Priscilla, from your standpoint, when did you see a change happening in me that said this is going to be a radical change just in our level of transparency?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to pinpoint a time right when you did this. I saw it change. To me, it was 4.5 years ago. You said you made a decision. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be honest and open with you. And you started walking backwards in what had taken place in your life. And then it brought it to the present. And you started to be honest, open, and transparent about what is happening today, what happened, a couple hours ago. And that's, so it hasn't been one time it started. It's been more of a process. Mm-hmm. But I would say that you and I both have come to a place that we are honest with each other, open, and we are hot. And we never had that before.
Yeah. 10 years into our marriage, you found out I had been looking at some porn and we decided to hide everything. Right. From other people, right? I was semi honest with you at that point. I was honest about things you had caught me in, right?
Right.
But I didn't really go down to the depth and say, listen, I'm going to be open. I answered your questions kind of like a lawyer, but I really wasn't open. And I certainly wasn't transparent about stuff that was going on inside of me that you didn't ask about.
So today we're going to look at examples and situations that we are honest about today, things that have occurred in the 4.5 years, things that have happened just today.
And it really is how we've decided to kind of operate our life. And
not only with each other, but with our family members.
Yeah, because I think that when you talk about this idea of being hot every day, honest, open, and transparent, we've broken it up and thought about how are we hot with each other? How are we hot with our family, our kids? And how are we hot with people that we come in touch with, right? Kind of those three main areas of relationships that we have. And, I think with us together, and I'd say really this was one of the key things, when I came clean, I was convinced that if we were going to have a transparent relationship and if I was going to have victory over these areas of sexual immorality in my life, I could not live with any secrecy from you. You were the person that God had given me, and I was going to have to be completely transparent about my thoughts, my actions, and there could be no secrecy in our life. And that gave me more victory over patterns of behavior than I had ever experienced in my life before. But I know that was daunting for you, but I saw with you that it started changing your pattern of discussions with me as well.
Right. I started to be honest and open and transparent. And even with some of my triggers, instead of stuffing my triggers, sucking it up and saying, forget it, don't let it bother you, I started to share these things do bother me. This is what you're doing, or this is the situation that is happening and it's affecting me.
Yeah, I think that was where we started seeing major victories in each of our lives, right? To overcome temptations and fears and lies that we were believing and, shame and things like this, is these triggers that would occur in our life that would take our thoughts back to earlier times. We had to be transparent about those. If you wait to be transparent until you've committed some sin, you've waited too long. What you have to do is be transparent about the road toward the sin, right? And say, here is what I'm thinking. Here are the triggers. I'm not there yet, but I know, because I know myself, that if I don't get this out and talk, I will wind up in a dark place that's not going to be good for me, and it's not going to be good for our marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that happened recently, actually last year. We went to dinner. A friend recommended a restaurant. We walked through the garden, and as we walked in, we didn't notice the pictures up on the wall. And so they sat us down. It was COVID, right? So they have all these barriers between tables, and we sat in this table, and there's nothing behind me, right? And he's facing me, and I'm facing all of the restaurant. And as we sat down, I started looking around, and on the wall, there were all these pictures. I was just like, oh man.
But they were pictures of?
I wouldn't say nudes, but the women didn't have much clothes on.
Okay, so provocatively posed women. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm just like, here we are on a date night, and this is where we have to sit. So I started reeling, like, oh man, Phil's going to start looking around and all these pictures are here. So I decided just to be upfront with you and say, listen, I know you haven't seen the pictures because we walked in and we didn't see them, but there's all these pictures around and I'm having a really big problem here and I want to leave. And so we talked through it, and you said, listen, I'm not going to look around. I'm not even going to use the bathroom. I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to face you and I'm not going to look around. And so we talked about it. That was a trigger, and we did have a good time.
So in that moment, was there a thought of, should I talk to Phil about this? Is he going to think that I'm just out of control on this or can't handle my emotions? Or were you like really quick to say, no, I'm going to talk about this?
No, I mean, we had gone through so much, right? This was just last year. And so no, I was probably quicker than I would have been in the past. Instead of letting it bother me and sit there and make all these faces and the expressions of, I can't stand being here. It's one of those things that I think more you talk about the triggers, more you talk about what is happening with you right now, it becomes easier and easier to express how I feel. But also I believe, like with you've been an instrument in helping me walk through these triggers and say, okay, let's think about this. This is going to be our plan while we're here. And that's what we did. We came up with a plan and it worked out fine.
Yeah, I remember after I came clean, I could be driving in the car and you aren't with me, I'm by myself, and I pass a massage parlor. Immediately a thought could come back to my mind on that. And so early on, I was sending you a little praying hands emoji. Right. And so that became our code, that if I'm struggling with a thought and I know myself, right? I know where this is and I want to harbor the thought in secrecy and dwell on it and ponder on it and remember it, and stuff like that. I'm going to send you the praying hands emoji. And that's a code to you that says, hey, I've got something going on in my head that I don't want there. You would immediately send me back a little kissy face, googly eyes, or a little heart, and you would encourage me with your words. And, it was amazing the power that gave me right then, because that allowed me, those thoughts just started evaporating. So when I took things out of the secrecy and brought them right out, and as soon as I hit send to you, those thoughts started vanishing.
It's interesting too, because when we started on this road, you used to send a lot more emojis. And I think we've walked through so much together that you still send me emojis every once in a while, but it's not like an everyday occurrence. Something's happening.
Yeah. I mean, things have had just less hold on my mind. Right. It's been 4.5 years on stuff like that. I think those types of things have encouraged both of us. Don't live with fear. Don't live with temptation. Don't live with secrecy. Don't allow it. It does not have to be there. All it does is it takes a word. It takes It takes a commitment that I'm going to talk to you about this. And that's really, I'd say that has transformed really the way that we end up dealing with things.
Yes.
Even like in the gym, when we go to the gym to work out, right? That was a struggle for you.
Initially, it was one thing after another every time I walked in. I mean, sometimes I even left the gym. I was so pissed off at what was happening in my head.
Well, what described to them what was happening?
Well, we go to this gym together, and most of the people are our age, and some of the women come dressed for the gym
with a little less dressing than others. Yes. Right.
Yeah, and so I would get triggered by that. And I would think, what is Phil thinking? What's going on in his head? And there would just be this buildup and this war going inside my head of what is happening in Phil's head. But the more I explained and I shared with you what was happening inside me, how this made me feel, and you shared with me what you saw in the gym, and I'm realizing, oh my goodness, the enemy is pulling my chain.
Yes.
Every single time I come in here, because that's not what's happening in Phil's head. And sometimes you would even say, I didn't even notice that person. And so it's a head game that the enemy has with us. And he puts these thoughts and he gets my emotions going. There is a place of coming together here and sharing and working through it. And these things are released.
And, and then on my side, and going to occasionally something would trigger me and you didn't notice it, right?
Right.
Like even this morning, we got back and I said, hey, I want to share with you 2 thoughts. You said, oh, okay, I understand. And we just kind of walked through that. But it's funny because right at the moment that I go through the struggle, am I going to share this? If I begin to entertain the thought of not sharing it and keeping it in secret, the thought seems to be overwhelming to me, even though it's not that big of a thought, right?
Right.
But the moment I come out and say, no, I'm gonna release it. I bring it out, I share it with you, and it allows us to walk through it.
Yeah.
Right.
And some of the things you have shared, I've gone, well, I brought you to reality. This is what the woman's thinking, and this is what you're thinking, and they're not working the same way. Or I just kind of said, okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
There is a theology around this whole concept of light and darkness and secrecy and transparency. And you may remember that story that whenever Simeon came to Mary in the synagogue and prophesied over Jesus, one of the things that he ended up saying is that, and this is in Luke 2:35, it's the New American Standard Version. It says, "A sword will pierce your own soul to the end that thoughts from many hearts may be revealed." So this phrase at the end of Luke 2:35, to the end that thoughts from many hearts may be revealed. I'm not sure I've even heard people talk about that very much.
No, it's not a popular verse.
Right. It's a prophecy that Simeon made to Mary, talking about Jesus, and it's this idea of a revealing of the thoughts. And when you get that and you start following that and looking at other references to this, you start seeing it, seeing other things that come out. And as an example, in John 3:20, whenever John's talking about a light has come into the world, it says, he goes on to say in 3:20, all who do evil hate the light and refuse to go near it for fear their sins will be exposed. So we're back here to this idea of a revealing, of an exposure of something that is hidden. And then if you look at Hebrews 4:12 is that famous verse that talks about the word of God being living and active and sharper than a two-edged sword. And it goes on to say that at the end, it exposes our innermost thoughts and desires. So again, back to an exposure, back to a revealing on this. And I think that's what we started seeing. And as we experienced this revealing, we saw that if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And that's 1 John 1:7. And Priscilla, I think that's a verse we talk about a lot, right?
Yeah, we do.
And we've seen this, that when we are looking at having fellowship with one another, if we are pulling stuff out of secrecy, out of darkness, and we're creating transparency between you and me, we feel the fellowship immediately between us.
Yes. And we also feel with other people too.
Yeah.
Because we just had a couple stay over at our house this past weekend, and they have been instrumental in our life. And to be able to sit around the table, drinking a cup of coffee, and being so real with them. It was refreshing and it was encouraging. The fellowship was authentic
Yes.
because we weren't talking about the football games or politics or stuff like that. We were talking about what it is that's going on in our lives, each couple.
Yeah.
What are we facing? What are we walking through?
Mm-hmm.
And that was tremendous.
Yes.
It was, they left and we were going, wow, what a sweet time that was with that couple.
Yeah, I remember we had a dinner with another couple. This has been a couple of years ago, and this is a couple we've known for a while. We traveled with them. We got finished with dinner, and I think the woman said, "Wow, this is what community feels like. This is what I'm looking for." Right? But the fact is, we don't do this very much. We don't walk in the light as He is in the light with each other and enjoy that fellowship very much. But when we've done it, it's been amazing. And even like in our Savage marriage groups, our small groups, right?
Yeah.
We tell people that if we have a fight the day of this small group or the week before, we're going to come in and we're going to share it with you.
And then we share how we solved it.
Yeah.
How it was solved, resolved, I should say.
And if it wasn't solved, we say, we're not solved yet. We got to still work on this, and we're going to tell you next week.
And I think they appreciate that because it's not a story of 20 years ago we were walking through this. No, we just did something just happened,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we've had couples walk in and said, well, we just had a fight out there in the car and here we are, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's happened numerous times. And that's being real, being like, this is what's happening and not putting on a face and saying, I'm perfect. I've arrived.
So I think with the people that we're around, you know, we have found that we shouldn't ask anybody else to be transparent if we're not being willing to be transparent, right? And so it has to start with us. And we have found more power, more substance, more intimacy in our relationships with other people once we started sharing in deep ways about what God was doing in our life than we've ever seen before in any ministry things that we've been doing.
Yeah. And that has happened also with our kids, our adult children and our teens, preteens, where we have shared things that have affected us that week, and we've shared with them, and it has changed the way they are living.
Yeah, I think early on when I came clean, what we did is we came clean with our kids too.
Mm-hmm.
So after I shared with you, within a couple of weeks, we started sharing with our kids. And we have 5 kids. 3 were adults at that time. 1 was married, 1 was engaged. And we went through with their spouses and fiance. And then with our youngest kids too, who were 9 and 11 at that point, and shared with them age appropriate on what had happened and what we were walking through. But that created I would say that change. Wouldn't you say that changed the whole trajectory of our relationships? And I'd probably say their marriages as well.
Actually, I think it has been helpful for their marriage. I think they would say that if we would ask them, they would say, yeah, this changed.
I mean, they were all 5 of our kids were interested in writing a section of the book. So we have a book that's coming out shortly on our story, and all 5 of the kids wanted to contribute their thoughts to that and what happened and how did this work? How did it impact them? And it's been amazing.
It has. It's been life-changing for all of us.
I mean, we had a situation a few weeks ago. Somebody sent me some video. I don't know what it was, right? And it was some innocuous video. And I clicked on it, and it was a TikTok feed. Now, I've never been on TikTok before, and I didn't hardly realize what this happened. I just thought it was a video, right? But then I realized it's a TikTok feed. And so it's like, so I start flipping through these, and pretty soon it's provocative. I mean, it's girls dancing, it's PG-13 type stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, and I'm flipping one after another. And after about 15 minutes, I put that phone down. I say, oh man, this is a sewer. This is an absolute sewer. I can't be looking at this stuff. And the next morning we got up, and I told you about this.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy either.
No, you were not happy with me about it, right?
I was like, what a noob, because we've been in this for 4.5 years, and you go and you watch TikTok, like, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't believe I did either. And it was kind of like, I wasn't intending to do it. It was just kind of one, and it sucked me into it.
That's what it does.
It was like the sewer of the world right there on your phone, right? So a couple days later, our kids were in there. I said, hey, we're always hot with each other. I just want to be hot with you and share what happened to me with this. I shared with them, and they listened to it. And I think one of our daughters said, "You know, it always feels good to get things out, doesn't it, Dad?" And I said, "It does, you know." And so we talked about that, but it was interesting. Now, several weeks later, and we're in the middle of this 21 days of prayer and fasting time that our church does, and one of our daughters said, "You know, I'm going to fast social media and just turn it off." You know, I don't know if that came directly from the TikTok thing, but it was certainly related to that, and that was encouragement to me. And the other thing that does is that gives me some level of accountability, right? You know, because they can always say, "Dad, are you looking at any more TikTok videos?" You know, which I've committed not to, and all that type of stuff. But I mean, all those things I think have really transformed our relationships of not just between you and me, but in our ministry and also with our kids.
Yes, that's it has benefited everyone involved. A lot of spouses ask the question of, how does it make you feel when your husband shares something with you, or how do you react? How do you take what they have said and not really get pissed off every single time? With us, I mean, we had some hard confessions in the beginning.
Yeah,
I was thankful that a wise woman said to me, "Whenever you hear your husband confess something to you, be thankful." Because a lot of husbands do not confess.
yeah,
And have an open heart in the sense of, what is it that God has forgiven you for?
mm,
So you're not looking at your husband as, "Hey, what a jerk. Why are you doing stuff like that?" You're looking at him as, this is my spouse who I am to help in his healing,
yeah,
to get past this, to get beyond where he's at, a broken person to a healed person. And that's the beauty of it, is that God wants to use me in your life, and God wants to use you in my life.
yes,
And we're here to help each other. We're here to walk this road together.
yes,
And
mm,
some things are hard to hear, but God is always faithful. He is our strength. He's our understanding and our wisdom, and He is giving to us in abundance when we ask.
yeah.
And that's what we have to do. Both of us are not perfect. We're far from it.
Yeah, Simeon told Mary to this end that the thoughts from many hearts will be revealed. And, you know, we have seen that.
Yes.
And it's been a revealing. It's been a beautiful revealing. It's been a hard revealing
Yeah.
sometimes, you know. But Priscilla, you've done a great job in that, though. You know, all the stuff I ended up sharing with you is very hard. I mean, I wonder what your reaction would be, right? And to be able to see um, God's grace through, you know, your voice, your forgiveness for me, for us to be able to walk forward, and not just in forgiveness, because we have done that, but I would say in the power of the Holy Spirit to be able to share this with other people,
That's right.
right? Because the truths that we're sharing here will transform relationships, marriages, and families. It absolutely will.
Yes.
And
We've
I
seen it.
and it's scary. You know, I think sometimes I remember you asking a mom one time who had talked about her promiscuous past, and she was worried about her daughter,
Yes.
her teenage daughter, you know,
She didn't want her to know.
and you asked her,
I did. I said, "Well, have you told her your story and how that affected you?" And she goes, "Oh, no, no, I wouldn't tell her that."
yeah, it's always, you know, parents, we believe that if we share that with a kid, they're going to go do what we did. We have not found that's the truth.
No.
Right. What it's done is it's created a forum for our kids to come to us. I mean, even our youngest daughters, who are now 14 and 15, right? We've revisited our story. We've allowed them to ask questions. We've encouraged them, and we've been amazed at how they will come out now and share something that's deep in their heart, something that they've seen. And we think about this. We would never have shared anything like this with our parents,
Yeah.
or even our older kids, right?
Right.
So, you know, we have three older kids who are adults, and all three married now. And then we have two younger children, and it allows us a little bit of compare and contrast on what we experienced. And so the level of transparency we're getting now is really truly amazing, and it's providing them a way that they don't have to live with the secrets in their heart.
Mhm.
They can come out and they can feel the grace of God through our words.
Yes.
Well, this is an important topic, isn't it?
It is. It is. And, God has done a marvelous work.
Yes.
And whatever God restores, the quality is different.
Yeah.
The quality of our marriage is so much different because He restored it.
Yeah.
And it's over. It's like He restored it to the best that it could be because it was done through Him.
Yeah. I was thinking about Hebrews 4:13 that says that we are open and laid bare to His eyes, and now we are open and laid bare toward one another.
To one another. That's
And it's a beautiful place to be.
It is.
And I'm looking forward to many more years with you, my darling, as we continue to explore what God's doing in our life, in our marriage. And we're just so thankful for that.
Amen. This is Phil and Priscilla Fretwell. Thanks for listening, and please join us next time as we continue talking about how God is healing and restoring marriages today.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Savage Marriage Ministries. Also, please join our Savage Marriage community at savagemarriageministries.com.
And remember, it's God who's at work in all your savage moments.